And then what happens? Sugar, sex, fat, salts. Instant gratification responses, weed, cigarettes, all that stuff. You do those things when you're challenged because you're attempting to live according to some authority figure and what they want you to do, and in the process, repressing what's truly meaningful to you, and therefore not wanting to go out into the world. You feel then that the world owes you something. How many of you can see that? It's 100% your fault. Here's how you get out of that. Hello, my name is Alexander. Erin posted on Facebook that she wanted someone to talk to you guys about marketing. So I volunteered. Here I am. You'll see I'm recording this. That's lesson number 1, maybe. I'll give you some context for who I am. My name is Alexander. I run a digital media marketing and broadcast agency here in Calgary, Alberta. I'd like to define marketing my way, which may be different from your curriculums and stuff. To me, marketing is simply a measurement of attention, okay? So here I am in this room, and for those of you who are interested in what I have to say, I'll keep your attention, right? You don't really control your attention. If your cell phone goes off and that's more important to you in terms of how your brain computates your reality, you're gonna look at your phone, okay? So the first principle that I'd like to share with you guys is that attention is not something you're in charge of, right? And authoritarian systems like schools and teachers and stuff, they're gonna say, don't do that thing you wanna do, like look at your phone. Don't do that thing, right? Because they're trying to control your behavior by telling you what not to do, right? They put constraints in place. But if we look at human behavior, and if you look at your own behavior, I think you'll find that your attention is largely something you're not on top of. Is that fair to say? It's captivated. A hot girl walks by, captivated, yes? How many boys know what I'm talking about? And girls, a hot boy walks by, right? Captivated. It just happens to you. Your friend can be talking to you, and someone walks by and you're like, what the fuck? Sorry, what were you saying? You know what I'm talking about? How many of you know you're not in charge of that? Right? It's like, whoa, I didn't hear what you just said for 10 seconds. I think it's critical to understand that marketing is a human behavioral study, which is why I wanted to talk today. Because nobody teaches human behavior. 99.99999% of this planet walks around believing they're in control of their own thoughts. And they walk around believing they're in control of their attention. And they walk around believing that they're making decisions and I'm a powerful person and I chose to do this thing. You understand what I'm saying? But in reality, if I asked you to look very carefully at the decisions you've made in your life, those decisions you think you're making are actually rationalizations for behaviors you're coping with in yourself just as much as everyone else is. How many of you know what I'm talking about? You're already doing the dumb thing before you've begun to rationalize why I'm doing the dumb thing. How many of you know what I'm talking about, right? You're like, oh my God, I'm coming to terms with this decision. So I want you guys to see that 1, attention is not within our control. 2, to some degree, you have a system in your brain that is allowing information in and disallowing other information. How many of you can see that? How many of you guys have friends who have said over and over for as long as you've known them, I'm gonna go do this thing, and they never do? How many of you, okay? How many of you yourself do that? Likely when you're trying to please your parents, likely when you're trying to show off to your friends, likely when you think you need to do it in order to achieve an authority position, likely when you're trying to please authority figures in school, right? So you can see that anytime there's an authority figure present in your mind, you're attempting to do shit that's unimportant to you. Yes? Say yes. Anytime I'm trying to please an authority figure, I end up doing shit that is unimportant to me. Can you see that? Anytime you do something unimportant to you, you lower your self-worth. I just need you guys to see that. This will change your life if you take this home with you. Every time you allow yourself, in an attempt to please an authority figure, to do something that isn't actually meaningful, you lower your self-worth. And to the degree you lower your self-worth, you are unlikely to express your true nature. You're unlikely to express your true story. You're unlikely to honor your history, you're unlikely to honor the story of who you are, and then therefore any marketing you ever attempt to position will be incongruent. In order to market yourself, but in order to effectively communicate, to express your true nature, to be an authentic and congruent human being who feels worthy and who is able to go into the world and ask for what they want, and who's able to go out and be powerful and in an authority, must be able and willing to express that they themselves have value. You must see yourself as valuable so that you will market. Does that make sense? You can learn all of the most amazing marketing strategies in the world, but if you feel like a worthless piece of shit, you will never go do it. You have to identify the story of meaning for you in your own life. Okay? So marketing is all about story of meaning. It's about your interpretation of the data, and how you interpret data in your life is a function of the questions you've trained yourself to ask. Here's an exercise. Ask how it served you. All those bad things you think are bad have goods in them. And all those things that are good have bads in them. Every single thing. I'm saying that in any given event, this event included, me talking to you is a behavior, yes? It's just a behavior. I'm just standing at the front of the room talking at you, okay? Some of you are gonna label this good, and some of you are gonna label it bad. Fair? By default. All of you have the capacity to come from either side and see the other. Does that make sense? And in fact, the most empowered leaders on our planet, the most sophisticated business people, what makes them leaders is their ability to hold two opposing thoughts in mind without negating either one. And so as marketers, we have a duty to do two things. We have a duty to see the event for what it is, both, okay? If you guys were prospective clients and you're not, but let's say you were prospective clients, it's important to me in how I choose to market that I make you aware of both the benefits and the drawbacks of working with me. Fair? If I sell you only on how good it's gonna be and then you show up and there's bad stuff, you're more likely to not like the bad stuff, aren't you? But if I warn you, there's gonna be a challenge, there's gonna be things we need to get by, there's gonna be things we're gonna have to work through, there's gonna be times I'm aggressive, and there's gonna be times I make you feel like shit. There's gonna be times I call you out and hold you accountable, but you can endure those things. And by preparing for them and having a strategy for them, although they are bad, can you see that those individuals will cope with those drawbacks more efficiently? Yes? So all of your potential customers need both of those things. And marketing is how we communicate that to those people while controlling the attention towards a specific end in mind, okay? So here's the thing about marketing. It doesn't have to be for a business. All of you are marketers because all of you have a story. You're recruiting your friends and your family and all of the people you're in relationship with into doing whatever it is you think should be done. How many of you can see that? Want to go to the movies? Call up your friends. You got to do some marketing, right? Want to fucking go on a holiday with your parents? You better do some marketing, right? So marketing is simply the art of capturing attention and then doing something with it. All marketing starts with an idea. It's just an idea. So the concept that you need a reason to market is totally false. In fact, one of the most important things that you can do as a marketer is come up with reasons to market. Literally, you could call them random, but they're not going to be random because of what I'm going to talk to you about now, which is that each of you has the greatest success and potential for marketing if you market in a way that is actually meaningful to you. Every human being operates according to a unique hierarchy of what's important to them. How many of you can see that? Can all of you see that what's important to you is not important to everyone else in this room? The thing that's most important to you is not most important to everyone else. How many of you can see that? And each of you expresses life through a lens that's fingerprint specific, yes? So how about we ask the following question. If I am automatically having my attention move around in life, if that's automatic, and there's a function in my physiology that's governing that, then isn't it fair to say that your reality is also being filtered by that? There's lots more information available in this room than your 5 senses can detect, yes? There's lots going on in the world. in your reticular activating system, which is in your midbrain, data comes in through your senses and is filtered by this hierarchy that exists in all of you, which is changing over time. Every new perception, every new behavior, every new experience adds to this hierarchy, okay? But this hierarchy exists in your brain. The data comes in through your senses, parses through the lower and midbrains, through the reticular activating system, and then a certain amount of that data is made available to the conscious mind. And then you take 99% unconsciously defined actions in your life and 1% consciously defined actions. But those actions then, therefore, are a byproduct of those filtered perceptions. How many of you can see that? So wouldn't it be important to understand how that filter comes to be? And can you have an impact on it? And how, as a marketer, can you work with that? Because every one of your prospective customers has one of these filters. And if you operate as if this filter doesn't exist, you will find yourself feeling that you can never figure out how to communicate with the audience. So how this works is, if your perceptions are filtered and therefore your actions are governed by that, then the results you've produced in your life as of today are a reflection of that value system. And so what we need to do is ask, what resources in my life are under my command? Fair? So money is a resource, time is a resource, your space is a resource, where you have order and organization is a resource. How you manage your resources reflects what's important to you. How many of you can see that? So write this down, everybody. How my customers manage their resources is what's important to them. So where something is meaningful and important to a person, they're willing to endure challenge, which means they're willing to honor the drawbacks. If something is unimportant to you, you're not willing to endure the challenge, you're going to avoid the drawbacks, you're going to seek instant gratification behaviors, right? When your parents ask you to do shit you don't want to do and then you go do it, what do you feel like you have to do after? Eat ice cream, right? You're like, I need a fucking reward for this because it wasn't worth it. You understand what I'm talking about? So when we're dealing in unimportant crap, you have to negotiate. And that's where price competition shows up, right? But if you're dealing with what's important to you, you're willing to endure challenge, you're able to sell something with realistic expectations, all of a sudden you've got a customer committed for life. Okay, we're gonna do an exercise. Everybody, do they have paper? Get out paper. We're gonna do a third of an exercise, and it's just gonna give you some perspective, okay?
If any of them don't, there's some blank paper up here.
Okay.
Sorry, that kid trapped you back in there.
It's all right.
He's adaptable. Who needs paper? Here, I'll take some too. We're gonna answer 4 questions, okay? And don't make this rocket science, don't mentally masturbate about it. I'm just gonna ask you a question, and the first 3 answers that come up for you, write them down, okay? And I want you to look at what the evidence of your life demonstrates. What your life's evidence demonstrates, not what you should do, ought to, must do, good, like all that crap, ignore it. What does your life demonstrate, okay? So what do you spend your money on? Top 3 things, categorically. If I gave you $1,000, you'd go buy 3 categorically things. Some of you buy video games. Some of you would go buy watches. Some of you go buy those ridiculous cars I see in the parking lot. This is a high school, right? So there's some idiot kid buying a Mercedes, which is a depreciable asset. Like, let's just get real. It's a depreciable asset. It gets less valuable every single day. But to somebody, see, I don't have the values for fucking cars. I'll drive around in a beater, it doesn't matter. If it's big enough to carry my broadcasting equipment, I'm good, I don't need a Mercedes. But somebody has a value on cars, so they're in that parking lot spending their money on a Mercedes. How many of you can see that? Okay? Top 3 things you spend your money on. Next, where do you demonstrate the greatest order and organization? Some people are like, I'm not an organized person. No, everybody's organized, and you are most organized according to what's important to you. So what are the top 3 categories where you are most automatically organized? So I'm at cash registers at Jugo Juice, and the fucking Ethernet connection on the back of the debit machine, the plastic head is coming off, and I'm telling the person at the till who doesn't give a fuck. They don't care. I'm listen, one day your debit machine isn't gonna work, and it's because of this right here. And they're looking at me, they're like, what the fuck? Why are you? I don't care. I'm like, I know. But when you can't do debit transactions and your manager is fucking having a cow, then you will care. And you'll remember this moment when I told you this end is coming off a cable. Can you see that that's order and organization? I want to bring order to a disordered system. The next is, where are the top 3 categories in your life where you are automatically disciplined and reliable? You've been told by your parents that you're not disciplined and reliable the way they expect you to be, but you are automatically disciplined and reliable the way you are. Where do you set a goal and achieve it? Where do you book an appointment and keep it? Where do you make a promise and fulfill it? Automatically. Top 3 categories. Okay? What shall I do last? What do you automatically read and learn about most? Top 3 categories. If I brought you into chapters, or you're up late on YouTube, or you're on Facebook, or whatever it is, in the context of learning, what do you automatically find yourself wanting and eager to learn about in life the most? Top 3 categories. Once you've got your answers, here's what I want you to do. Which answer showed up the most? Who wants to tell an answer? Who has an answer that showed up for every question? Go.
Hockey.
Hockey? You love hockey. What are you doing after school today?
Hockey.
Hockey. What a surprise. Here's how you get to know your customers. Ask what their behavior demonstrates. Where is their attention automatically? What are their values automatically? If you speak to what they tell you is important, you're going to get it wrong. How many of you can see that? Now, how many are you trying to please any authority figures? Are there any authority figures in your life who are like, you're never going to make it in hockey? You're delusional, it's not going to happen. Yeah, and you're like, fuck it, I don't care, I'm doing it anyway. So you're willing to endure challenge. How many of you can see that? He has people in his life saying, this is stupid, don't do it. And he's like, I'm doing it, it's a challenge, I want it. This is that hierarchy of values. If you take your answers and you simply group them up, if you did all 13 questions, okay, 13 value determinants, each one 3 times, right? You'd end up with 39 answers, okay? If we group those 39 answers into categories, you're gonna end up with somewhere between 3 to 8 items on your specific hierarchy. This is your fingerprint of identity, okay? And the item that ends up at the top of the list, this is what the Greeks called the telos, which is the root word for the study of teleology, which is the study of meaning and purpose in life. The key to taking risks and expressing a message and finding your story and having a purpose and living your mission is knowing what this item is right here, okay? And your definition of this item is gonna change over time as you weave a story around this. This whole thing needs a story, and that story is gonna lead to your marketing, okay? But ultimately, this telos is what's called a purpose. And every human being has a purpose that's fingerprint specific and unique to you. And every single one of your customers has a purpose that's fingerprint specific to them. What I'd like you to see, and this is where it turns into the marketing conversation, is that what becomes most important to you is a function of what you believe is most missing in your life. How many of you can see that? Someone who believes they have no money wants what? Someone who believes they're missing a relationship wants what? So literally the word important, if this is a sphere, to import into my sphere that which I believe is important is called a void. And I'm gonna make the statement that these voids, these perceived voids, drive your values. So what your customer says is important is likely a fantasy. Because all of your customers, because of the state of humanity, human beings are just like this. Most human beings are trying to live according to items on the list that are way down here. So there's 2 steps between you and your customer. 1, not being tricked by them. Every single one of your customers is gonna tell you they think they know their solution and they're gonna try to buy that solution from you. And your job is to very lovingly pause and determine if that in fact is what they need. Right? And how you can do that is by speaking not to their fantasy, but instead to what you know their voids are. My business is media broadcasting, digital marketing, and IT services for small business owners. I want to help small business owners find their story, acquire new leads, and scale their business. So if a customer comes to me and they're like, Alexander, I want to find new leads, find my story, and scale my business, And I can see they're congruent about that, and they're like, listen, I know there's going to be drawbacks. I've already done the analysis. Da, 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 da. Maybe I found the 1 in a million people who know they need what I sell, right? But for everyone else, the question is, what is a person who might want to buy this missing in their life? What are they missing? They're missing a sense of having permission. What have I spent almost all of my time just trying to get you to have permission? Every single one of my clients has not given themselves permission to be great. If they're the star of their own show called their life, what they're asking for is a producer. But how they might ask for it is by saying, Alexander, I need new customers. Does that make sense? They're going to just go to the thing they perceive to be most painful. They're not going to have an appreciation for how what they perceive to be painful might be an injected authority, or they might not know how to articulate their pain in terms of the void they actually have, which means they don't actually know what they need to buy. They think they know what they need to buy because they don't know who to trust, because everyone's trying to sell them crap they don't need instead of just ask questions to discover what's important to them and then align with that. So if I sit down for 15 minutes with one of my customers, I can figure out, based on their behavior, what's important to them. Fair? Am I out of time?
Yeah, 1 minute.
Okay.
All right, let's take this opportunity to give him a round of applause.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.